Expected points, clean sheet odds, captaincy, and the best players to buy. This video has got all of the information you need to know ahead of game week 37. Alright, then we're going to start off by talking about the best players, the top players for expected points by position. Now, the way I usually lay this out is we do a view of players just for the single game week that we're talking about, game week 37 in this case, and then a look ahead at the next three. But given there's only game week 37 and 38 left, it's only a look ahead to the next two coming up next. But for game week 37 alone, Dubravka is the top goalkeeper according to DraftTown for expected points. Brighton and Man United, his two fixtures. I think he's probably propelled ahead of Ederson just a little bit because of his likelihood to make saves. When it comes to Ederson, it's really clean sheet or bust with him. He very rarely ever gets saves bonus. Petrovic, I think DraftTown just have him slightly less likely to keep a clean sheet than Dubravka does. Vicario, Burnley, Man City, I think ultimately you can probably, completely write off that Man City game. I don't think he's keeping a clean sheet in that one. Pickford, only a single for him, but he's right up there. Sheffield United at home's a good fixture for him. I really would question, if I had Jordan Pickford in my team right now, I would question definitely whether it'd actually be worth selling him for a double game week player. I don't think I'd do it. I think I'd just keep him. Ortega, Ederson is definitely going to be starting for Man City in game week 37 in my mind. He started in game week 36, so there's no reason Ortega plays, so you could probably ignore him from that. Verbruggen at Brighton with a nice, nice double. Brighton, could score goals in those games. I don't think they necessarily keep clean sheets though. Onana, again, it's a similar story with him, although I do expect him to get saves bonus in both of those fixtures. And obviously Scott Carson, he's not going to play for Man City. So over the next 2 weeks then, it's not three this time, just two. Dubravka is actually the top keeper, followed by Ederson, Petrovic, Vicario, David Raya, who of course only has two fixtures, but with Arsenal just being so solid and strong defensively, he's always going to be up there for the top keepers. Pickford, likewise, similar to David Raya. Everton are decent defensively. He makes a lot of saves. He's a really good goalkeeper in terms of FPL points. So he's right up there. Again, I'd ignore Ortega because I think Ederson's going to play. And Verbruggen and Onana are the next two top keepers for the next couple of weeks. All right, then on to the defenders. And the DraftTown algorithm is absolutely loving Man City defense. I think they're good, but the one thing I would question is you have to pick the ones that are going to start. And I think bar maybe Walker and Guardiola, I don't think any of the others you can really hang your hat on consistent starts. Guardiola has proven to be one of the best defenders in the league right now. And I think his spot in the Man City starting 11 is pretty much nailed down, especially when you consider the run of attacking returns that he's gone on recently. Walker, he's behind Guardiola. I think he's probably the second best Man City defender. Club captain, we all know the pace he has on defense, right? He's so important to the way they perform defensively. So I really like Kyle Walker. Not sure I'd go near Akanji. I think his place will be rotated with Diaz. Likewise, Ake, I think he could be rotated in and out with Ruben Diaz too. I don't mind Pedro Porro, but with Spurs, that Man City fixture just really puts me off. I think they'll struggle in that one. And ultimately, Spurs defensively are not that good. So if you pick Porro, you're entirely reliant on him getting attacking returns, basically. I even think Burnley could score against them at the moment. Rico Lewis is up there. I don't think he's going to play enough games for Man City to be worth it. Chalobah, Cucurella for Chelsea, I think could be decent options. Chalobah, I don't think is quite nailed enough. 4.3 million is a good price. I think Cucurella is probably the better one to pick. Gusto's back fit now, came off the bench in game week 36. He's not going to be on this list just yet because we didn't know if he was even going to play in game week 36, and the DraftTown algorithm hasn't quite caught up with that. If you check the website yourself in the description below, you might be able to see that. But I would put Gusto as probably my favourite Chelsea defender. And then Dan Burn, pretty much the only decent Newcastle defender you can nail on, say is nailed on to start. He's up there as well for top defenders for 37. Over the next couple of weeks, it's a very similar story to the 1 week view, basically. It just has a little bit of Ben White in there, basically. Full of Man City defenders, Pedro Porro, a couple of Chelsea, and Ben White. Guardiola being the top one for the next couple of weeks. Midfielders, and Kevin De Bruyne tops the list for midfielders for game week 37. It's interesting, but I don't see Phil Foden on this list. I would have Phil Foden right up there myself. Let me know in the comments what you think of that. I think the fact that he missed the fixture in game week 35, it left an orange arrow, if you like, on Phil Foden in DraftTown, and that might have pushed down his expected points a little bit. which is why Kevin De Bruyne is the emerging top midfielder. I would definitely say Phil Foden should be on this list. He may or may not be better than Kevin De Bruyne. That's kind of a subjective thing, I think, but he should definitely be near the top. Cole Palmer in second place, Gordon third, Bruno Fernandes, I mean, waiting to see if he's actually going to play in Game Week 36. But I think regardless of whether he does, I think he'd be fit and fine to go for Game Week 37. Heung-min Son, Jacob Murphy, GAMEWEEK, who I really like as a differential. And considering Chelsea, they seem to have actually hit a little bit of form towards the back end of the season. He could be a nice pick. Bruno Guimaraes, not too sure. Comparing him to Gordon, I don't think he's quite as good from an attacking perspective. And likewise, Gallagher for Chelsea, I think he just plays a little bit too deep for me to pick him as an option. Over the next 2 weeks is a very similar story, to be honest. We do see some Arsenal players come in, given their favourable fixture against Everton in Game Week 38. But most of the players are ones we've already talked about. So De Bruyne, Palmer, Gordon, Fernandes, Son are the top 5. Saka, GAMEWEEK, Odegaard and Havertz round off the top midfielders for the next couple of weeks. Based on this, if you're looking to sell someone like Saka, for example, to get in a double game week player, unless it's like Foden, Palmer, De Bruyne or Gordon, maybe Bruno in there as well, I wouldn't be rushing in to get like what I would call an average double game week midfielder. Against Man United at Old Trafford, he could, the likes of Saka, Odegaard and Havertz could do really well if you currently have them. And then they've got a nice fixture in Game Week 38. So if I had the Arsenal midfielders, I don't think I'd be rushing them out of my team. Right then, on to the forwards, and I guess it's no surprise. Erling Haaland is the top player for Draft Town expected points for Game Week 37. And that, of course, means he's the top forward. Isak is second place, 12.3 expected points. Julian Alvarez obviously came off the bench for Haaland against Wolves and scored. He could get some decent minutes and be a nice option. I just don't think you can pick him above Haaland, basically. I think you're best off tripled up in terms of well, we'll talk about the best Man City triple up in a second, but I think there are 3 better players in the Man City squad you can pick in FPL than Alvarez. Jackson, who has really hit form at the moment, he could be quite a tasty option. Only 11.1% owned. I think that will probably go up given his form that he's in at the moment. Højlund, João Pedro, Callum Wilson, another really nice differential who I think if you can't quite afford Isak or haven't had him already and want to hedge against him, Wilson could be a nice way to do that. Welbeck and Watkins round off the top forwards. So you've seen that Erling Haaland is the top player according to Draft Town for expected points. I just wanted to fire in one other expected points data source in FPL Review. They also have Haaland as the top player, 10.6 expected points for him. Son, close second, 10.0, although that's based on Haaland playing 76 minutes per game and Son playing 88. You can go in the FPL Review website yourself and update that expected minutes figure. So, if you put Haaland in at 90, he's obviously going to have more expected points than that. Foden third, De Bruyne 4th, Palmer 5th, and Isak and Gordon 6th and 7th. And the final stats to look through, we got some clean sheet odds according to Draft Town. It's a bit of a hodgepodge this week just because it's a double game week. Hopefully the figures aren't too confusing to read. Man City are the top team for combined clean sheet odds. 45% in their first fixture, 34% in their second. Tottenham 40 and 14. Newcastle 31-21. Everton 44% to keep a clean sheet against Sheffield United at Goodison Park. Chelsea 27-22. Arsenal 36. Man United 11-23. Brighton 10-23. And then West Ham 29. Honestly, I would be nervous about picking a defender from any team sort of below Arsenal because I don't really think there are going to be many clean sheets to go around. Although let me know in the comments what you think of those clean sheet odds. Now, I'm going to do a little repeat of what I did in my buy and avoid video that I released on Saturday, but I'm just going to talk through the teams with a double game week and rate the assets that might be worth buying. But you can see the Newcastle ones there to read yourself. But for me, I think, yes, obviously it's a double game week in 37, and it makes sense to be targeting these teams with a double. But what I would say is do so, sell the likes of Saka, Salah, Watkins, the great players that only have a single game week at your peril, because we have seen this season that some double game weeks have been a little bit overrated, certainly in the build-up, and then disappointing when they come off, right? So what I'm saying is, yes, double game week players are probably the ones you want to be buying this week, but I wouldn't do it at the cost necessarily, or certainly for hits, for some of the best assets in the game that only have a single, like the likes of Saka, Salah, Son. Well, Son's got a double, so he's not in there. But Son, Saka, Salah, Saka, Watkins, I keep getting the names wrong. Those sorts of players, you get what I'm saying. They could still have a really good game week. and I'd certainly be looking to avoid taking hits to get rid of them, just because I think they could be so good. But getting on to the Newcastle options, I think they got a couple of players that I would consider as great picks. Gordon and Isak, I think, are the two strongest Newcastle players. I don't really need to talk too much more about the two of them. Burn, I think, is the only defender that you can say is actually pickable, although how many clean sheets are they realistically going to keep? Dubravka, I think, for that reason, it is the same. I think he's probably going to start both games, but I hear Nick Pope is back in training, so question mark as to when he's actually going to be available. And I do like Callum Wilson if you want to go a bit different. I'll whiz through these because I made an entire video going through these in my previous one, so if you want some more detail about my thoughts, check out that video. I think Bruno Fernandes is realistically the only great pick from a Man United perspective. Outside of that, I think they're decent. You know, Garnacho, Maguire, nice and cheap with good goal threat. Højlund, Rashford and Onana, they're all pickable, but I don't think they're quite in the same category as Bruno Fernandes. Brighton, I honestly don't think there is a single Brighton player I think is a shoe-in great pick for your FPL team. João Pedro, Dunk and Gross, respectively, they could be pretty decent. I think João Pedro is probably the strongest, but he is not necessarily nailed on to start every game, so for that reason, I can't call him a great pick. Spurs, again, I think there's only one great pick from Spurs in Son. Porro, Vicario, Richarlison, Maddison, Kulusevski, Johnson, Romero are all decent. Defensively, they've got Man City as one of their two fixtures, so I mean that basically completely rules out a clean sheet in my mind, even though they're already poor defensively. Richarlison, Kulusevski, Johnson are all fighting for two positions, and Maddison is way out of form at the moment. So I think Son is realistically the only Spurs player I'd say you should really be looking to pick. One player I think again from Chelsea, and that's Cole Palmer. Outside of that, Gusto, he'd probably be back for game week 37. He's nice and attacking, probably the best defender to pick. Jackson's right on in form again. I'd say he's between decent and great picks at the moment. Probably move him into the great pick column, to be honest, after his performance in 36. He could be nice. Petrovic again could be nice. They just concede a few too many goals for me, Chelsea, to consider any of their defenders a great pick. But Gusto, Petrovic and Cucurella are probably the outstanding, obviously, goalkeeper and defenders. Man City, I think there are three really strong picks from a Man City perspective. Haaland, Foden and De Bruyne. I think they'll be fighting for the title right until the end. And given how things have played out in game week 36, I just think that Man City will play their strongest team in both fixtures, which I think means Haaland, Foden and De Bruyne will start all three games. I think those are the three great picks. I think their defenders are all right, but they do concede too many goals in my mind for Man City to say, for me to say that any of their defenders are great picks. But Ederson, Guardiola and Walker are the three I would hang my hat on to play the most minutes. Ederson obviously is clean sheet or bust. Guardiola is probably the stronger of the three, given he's got some attacking returns recently. Walker's probably a little bit more nailed than Guardiola, I would say, just given he's club captain and so important with his pace defensively, but he doesn't really get any attacking returns. All right, and that's the end of the video. Quick little counter through some of the stats and then the top players that are worth talking about ahead of Game Week 37. If you enjoyed that video, please leave me a like rate and let me know in the comments what you thought of some of those expected points totals and my views on some of the players that you might be wanting to pick. If you enjoyed it, please leave me a like rating. Like I said, you can subscribe to the Goal to Goal channel if you're new around here and want to see more from me. It should be around there on the screen. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you in my next video.